just got to the start of the show and realised I still have my jacket on, and I was going to try and get that off and do the branding thing, but I nearly forgot. There we go. Hey, John, how you doing?
I'm going great, everybody. How are you? Welcome to the show, all our regulars and new listeners again. I've got some great friends checking out Wirecast today, having a look at the show. Shout out to them. Hi, everybody. Great to be back with you. And I can see Lloyd there in the wings. G'day, Lloyd.
G'day, Lloydie in the wings.
Yep. Yeah, he's in the wings. Always in the wings.
The troublemaker's there.
Show.
The troublemaker's there. Just a quick comment on that. This is the last week we're using this version of Wirecast. I didn't want to change to a new release just before the show. I wanted to kick the tires a little bit more, so we'll have that coming up next week. And so if you see John's voice looking like a little bit of a Chinese movie or something where he's talking and the sound's out of sync, you'll understand why. We'll have that fixed next week.
Phantom agents.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's happening in your world, John?
It's actually been a great week, thank you. I got invited to sit on a new MOS for the AAUS, which is a technical working group looking at various ways how things are going to move forward with registration and all sorts of other things.
John, can I interrupt? I've got to interrupt because I love hang on, wrong one. Where's the button? I just saw it coming up. $3 super chat from Ken Heron. Pair character stretching his arm forward, raising his thumbs up. I guess that's the text version of a super sticker, but thank you for the super chat, Ken. Appreciate it.
Hey, Ken, great to have you on again. Always good to have in part of the show. So, yeah, it's been a big week. We've delivered a new manual. There's a new manual template for Australian operators. So things are moving forward. You know, it has been a good couple of weeks, actually, for things over here. We've still got a lot of questions over some recent developments in Australia in terms of cyber attacks and how that's going to play out. So we'd love to hear some comment in the chat about that and having our previous discussions about DJI and security and so forth. So there's some new new stuff we're going to look at with that too.
Yeah, let me jump in on that just a little bit. So for those who are outside of Australia, you may or may not have heard in the news that a state actor, and while the Prime Minister has not explicitly said, there is a definite suspicion in the media that it's China that's currently attacking Australian government systems. And I'll just share briefly, I was trying to call an Australian government department myself yesterday, and I was on hold with them, and all of a sudden the call dropped out, and then I called back and I said, okay, put me in the queue to go and call me back. Waited 2 hours, and it was supposed to be an 18-minute call back, never happened. So I said, okay, I'll call them back again. And I got onto someone and the phone dropped out again. So, I don't have definite proof that it's related to the cyber attacks, but certainly there's something happening in Australian federal government systems yesterday. Now, how does this relate to DJI? I briefly want to talk about that. There's been this whole paranoia about DJI equipment and using it for government purposes. My quick comment on that is this. You can turn off external connectivity when you're flying. You don't have to have that up. So especially the government versions where you can fly with the DJI Pilot app and you've got that offline mode.
Let me throw something else in here though, Greg, just quickly about turning off while you're flying. When the telemetry logs, and I've just realized this with my new Air Data subscription, once you sync your flights back to your DJI account, what's stopping that account being hacked and all of that telemetry coming then, not while I was flying, but after I've flown and been stored on the server where I flew? Some of the photos get taken in there, most people know. Your DJI account's got a lot of your flight information in it. So where does that go?
Okay, and the answer to that question is it definitely goes to DJI service. But again, for state government or federal government employees, they can get their own mini version of that service. So instead of syncing to DJI, you sync to your own server infrastructure, remains your property, remains your data. You've got control over it, but you've got to spend the money if that's something that is a concern to you. If you don't, then you either don't sync or you wear the risk if you do sync. That's your choice.
Well, here's a wonderful little turnaround on how to think of it. And I was going to ask Lloyd about this one. So a lot of the cyber attacking here has been worried about intellectual property in the last a dozen years or so, where China has taken various intellectual properties and used it for developing products and so forth. I wonder if the Chinese are concerned about their software and their technology within their aircraft being used illegally as intellectual property, or maybe a lot of the DJI software has been gotten from somewhere else. We've had a look at that before. So there's a lot of just inside, without talking about the flight telemetry, the actual intellectual property within the aircraft themselves that make all this magic happen. What think you, Lloyd?
Can I, before we go to Lloyd, I just want to jump in with one other quick thing. There's a video that came into my feed this week about a guy that lives in China, and the topic of the video, I was nearly arrested for flying my drone in China. So this is a non-Chinese guy. He was flying, and he's got a story. I'd love to have him on as a guest. I'll try and reach out to them. But now, having interjected that before the thought left my head, now let's go to Lloyd.
What do you think, Lloyd?
Yeah, well, I mean, what's to prevent anybody to reverse engineer and how do we know DJI actually developed that software? They may have stolen it from somebody else, and then modified it to fit their needs. I mean, that's the problem with all of these, and especially, we think of DJI as a friendly company because we all like their products, but they are in essence owned by the Chinese government. Every company in China is a percentage of it is owned. And now with the new crackdowns that they're doing on in Hong Kong, they've suddenly, and of course we backed away and said, okay, that's your problem. And they're going to go after Taiwan next. That's the kind of situation we have. And that just means that everything that was developed in Hong Kong as to be used worldwide is now going to be under the control, much more controlled by the Chinese government. Yeah, we're probably going to have other countries stealing their stuff, reverse engineering it. I mean, in some ways, they've already done it with no limit drones. They've reverse engineered that stuff to make it work. So there's other people out there that's going to do it. But who's to say that DJI didn't steal it from somebody else? We don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we know the first copter safe stuff was in Russia. A lot of the first reverse engineering. And that uncovered things that Greg, brought into the conversation nearly 2 years ago, that DJI, when you unpack DJI software, it's got OpenGL stuff in there that was uncredited and had been obviously used, which is an open platform, and they'd broken those rules as well. So we do know there's inside the DJI software, there is a lot of OpenGL public robotic software that they've used.
Yeah. That's to be fair, there's a lot of things that they've done wrong in the past. They have tried to correct the errors of their ways. I don't give them a get out of jail free card. They've still got some open source components, but at least they're acknowledging that. Are there more under the hood? Don't know. The other thing they used to do is they used to use some libraries, for example, produced by Tencent, which was leaking data left, right, and center. Hello, this is what the aircraft is doing, and going and spitting it out to all these servers. And that was absolutely wrong, but that's gone away largely, okay? Thanks to the researchers who found these problems, we're now in a much better place. But it's a big topic. We could talk forever on this. Let me just quickly go to a couple of other quick topics before we get into the news. Number one, Sutherland Shire Council, they haven't still done anything. So I went and I've talked to them myself about that, and I'm waiting on a response by next week. Second thing, RC. This is a quick little topic. I just want to acknowledge a good friend of mine over many years who I was selling some software to, and unfortunately he passed away a couple of days ago. Very dear friend to me, and had it not been for that friendship, I wouldn't have needed to get tech support for my business a number of years ago. And had I not needed to get tech support, I wouldn't have met the beautiful wife that I have producing this show for me now. So RC, you're a great friend, and we'll miss you. One other thing that I do want to briefly touch on is one of our viewers here today has his son currently, as we speak, having just received a heart transplant, literally as we speak. That's Nick Hightech Redneck. Nick, where I'm thinking about you, and I've also, asked our viewers to keep you in their thoughts as well. And in particular, I know that no medical insurance in any country ever is gap-free. There's always a lot of extras and challenges. So with that, I had a chat to Grumpy before the show today, and I've asked him to set up a GoFundMe to allow our viewers, and we'll share this on a few other channels as well, and our viewers can chip in and help you out with some of those gaps. I know it's not about the money when it's your child, a 3-year-old son. They mean everything to you, but hopefully this can help a little bit. So thank you for being part of our OzByDrone community. Now, Grumpy, do me a favor, post the link to that if you've already set it up in the chat. But without further ado, okay. Without further ado, it's time to get into the news.
Data.
OzByDrone news is brought to you by AirData UAV. Is your drone healthy, or is it about to surprise you on your next flight?
Not that one.
Not that one. Okay, so let's pause. Let's pause.
That's good.
My producer was holding up a piece of paper telling me to talk about the sponsor, and I was about to do it.
That's good. Well,
let's try that again. Look, they're going to get an extra. They're going to get a double logo. So here we go. OzByDrone news is brought to you by AirData UAV. Is your drone healthy, or is it about to surprise you on your next flight? Don't wait to find out. Discover under the hood information and review the early signs of problems before you take off again. Use discount code OzByDrone20 for a 20% discount. There's a link in the description for this video, and I'm loving the laughter from Lloyd in the background. He's just going.
If you smoked all that weed we just saw, you wouldn't be able to decipher any of that.
You wouldn't be able to fly your drone anyways. Yeah.
Right, you wouldn't go. You'd be flying without the drone.
But you know what?
You wouldn't care if it crashed.
You know what? Before we get into the next story, which is entitled Drone Weed, let's get into the weeds of AirData just for a minute. John, you've been having a look at AirData, our beautiful program sponsor.
Yeah, they're fantastic. I mean, you actually introduced me to AirData some 18 months ago or more, said you started using it. I saw a couple of your reports. We're approaching in Australia a situation where after October the 10th, the record-keeping changes, and even excluded non-licensed pilots, not recreational, but excluded category pilots, will have new obligations in keeping records of their flight and their drone data and battery condition, all that sort of thing. So I put my head down. I got an account. I started paying a subscription. I had a look at the Gold 360, and all of this is online. They very kindly gave me an enterprise till the end of the month to have a look at. This is a great program. It absolutely is a great program in terms of how much data it gets. Just to give you a quick sample, I downloaded all my flights into the AirData to display the technology, what was done in the flights. AirData goes back and gets the actual weather, ground temperature, wind at the time, wind direction, all of these environmental conditions, the phase of the moon even, from the weather sites, from the weather records, back matches them to the time and the location that you flew in longitude and latitude, and displays that too. So I can go back and see a flight I did in 2016, and at exactly 10:02 in the morning when I took off at this location, this was the forecast wind, the forecast ground temperature or actual ground temperature, depending where you are. It's an absolutely wonderful program. So I want to put my thumbs up for AirData UAV. I think they've been around for a while, and they've got a very, very good handle on how it all works. We downloaded all our Parrot files, Litchi files. We got files from all of the other aircraft that we fly. You can manually enter. Definitely check it out. And the free subscription, I mean, has a lot of stuff in it, which is just one. It doesn't cost you anything to have a look at it. So definitely go and check that out. And even if you're just flying recreationally, as this first news article started with about drone health, are your batteries, every time you put a battery in and download the data, you can see if a cell is starting to fail, if it's starting to not perform the way it should. And you could actually prevent a crash with the way this thing actually monitors the health of the UAV itself. Fantastic stuff. I love it.
Yeah, so do check out Air Data. Again, there's a free version available, as John mentioned, but if you do want to use a discount code, OzByDrone20, and you'll get a 20% discount. And I just remembered they've actually got a sale on at the moment for Father's Day, so there's a 30% discount available until Father's Day this weekend, I think until Sunday. So let's put that one more time, and now it's time for the news. Well, there goes that great new sponsor, says Thunderbird. Yeah, let's get back into the weeds now. Okay, and with that, here we go. So our first story is about weeds. So this is a drone takedown worth $628,000 in the UK. And having a look at that photo there, what basically happened, there was a thermally equipped drone, and it was able to see heat produced by the high power lights used to grow marijuana, essentially giving the police a thermal picture of, come over here, come and get us, here we are. You know, it was a beautiful thing to see, this photo. But from a commercial perspective, that's a big opportunity for some new commercial services in that sector, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, traditionally, hydroponic situations like that were tracked through your power consumption. So if you had a really big power bill, you only had a 2-bedroom house, and you were burning what a factory burns, they would have a look at you. Of course, this is a completely new technology, and also because a lot of off-station, off-grid hydroponic is growing with solar these days, so there's no other way to trace it. But apparently, Greg, I hear just on the grapevine that the XT thermal camera can even spot heat developed in the basement of a house by the heat leaking from the vents and outside. So even if the setup was under the house, so yeah, as to say, interesting use of the technology, and I think that they'll probably be taken up by law enforcement.
And also, our friend over here, Lloyd, obviously needs to worry as well, because I heard here he's got a hydroponic set up in his house.
Yeah,
tell us about that, Lloyd.
Well, we're Judy for started. Yeah. Anyway, I started growing bonsais in the house. They're bonsai trees. Okay, I've got one that's like a 10-year-old, and I was put some money into, but they need extra light. So I bought a couple of the cheap lower end multi-spectrum lights, and they're not enough. Well, I ordered one the other day, and it came in today, and let me tell you, that thing would light up a runway. So, and it's going to be hanging right in our window, so they're going to see right there.
They're going to walk straight in and go, bonsai. I know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the good thing is my son's a cop, and his patrol car's next door. Unless they think he's on the take, I'm pretty well covered, I think.
Yeah, you got it.
Although he may be asking some questions.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on to our next story, and this one is about a mud drone. Apologies for covering up your comment there, Thunderbird. We can put that up again in just a moment. Next story, a mud drone. So Mud Architects, they're a finalist in a competition. Their drone sprays fast architectural material using drones to spray earthen mortars onto light formworks to result in, a vaulted structure or free-form buildings. They've even been looking at this for cheap forms of accommodation, for emergency accommodation. Let's have a look at the clip. So I'm sitting here looking at this, and there is some audio that's meant to be going to air at the moment, but it's not working.
A picture says 1,000 words.
So I tell you what, I'm going to let that continue to play, and I'm going to try and go fix the audio. I'll be back in a moment, and if I'm not back, tell some jokes.
Oh, look, I'm loving what I'm seeing on the video there. That's fantastic. Definitely looks like a tarot frame there with the sprayer. Of course, in this environment, you can also run, and you would run power to the aircraft as well as the spray. But of course, once you've got a tube like that, and you're doing this and supplying power and not having to lift what you're spraying, the aircraft becomes very handy for doing that kind of work. I'm just looking, maybe it's a different type. I'm just trying to pick the aircraft itself, what it is, whether it's a custom. Yeah, interesting stuff. Tethered flight too. Yeah, look at that. That's pretty cool. Put it up, be easy to knock down and get rid of too. Yeah, clever. Yeah, love it. And this sort of goes on too. I know that we've got some really good weeding programs now. Of course, when you're weeding areas like large dam walls and stuff, you couldn't use the tether. Oh, there's the sound.
And just as we finished the end of that clip, I just sorted out the audio, so at least that's going to be working for the next one. Apologies for that. I'm back, John. I hope you kept our audience entertained.
Well, I just had a chat. I mean, it's nice as saying, looking at the video, you can see what's going on anyway, and sort of comment on it. I mean, every time I see something attached to a UAV like this and doing something, you know, the mind just straight away goes to, well, how many different places could you use that? Spray painting a difficult part of your house, you know, or a large hangar or something, you know, the aircraft could be done really accurately, and putting up, you know, working with spray paint.
I saw another video from the same company, and they, if you can imagine, they had a sheet with a pattern cut out of it, and they were using the same drone to go and do spray painted templates on top of walls that were previously graffitied. So they do a first blanket out coat, and then they come back and they spray their pattern on top of that later, and it looked very, very effective. Good way of dealing with graffiti.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Let's move on to our next story, and we don't need audio for this one, but it's the topic of GATWICK, and just when you thought we'd heard the end of it. So the couple that were arrested over the Gatwick airport drone chaos, they're going to receive a $200,000 payout from police over their arrest. Now, that's the good news. So, you know, they didn't do anything wrong. They're sitting in their home. They've got a drone. This craziness is happening elsewhere. And it's good.
I heard that they didn't even own a drone. I thought they didn't even own an aircraft. That's what I heard, but I'm wrong there.
Oh, look, I can't remember that detail, but here's the kind of sad thing, that it's the reality that we all do know. The lawyers got 2/3 of that, so they only received 1/3 of the entire payout.
Yeah, that's right. I knew that too. I did follow that story. Look, it's obviously there's going to be some rules around this in future. The technology for tracing, you know, illegal use around airports is getting better. I mean, that was a huge bit of malarkey over that, where they weren't even sure sometimes whether the sightings were actually drones. So, you know, I think they've got to get their act together, and, you know, I think we're going to see a bit more of this sort of stuff happen before we actually get it sorted out.
Yeah. Agent K says not enough money. Just briefly on that topic in general, I want to kind of link this very briefly to some of the police protests that we've seen happening. The fact that they went into this place and arrested these people without, you know, proper due cause, and without the ability to actually say, yeah, hey, there's a good reason for arresting you right now, and that's evidenced by the fact of this payout. Maybe that's just another example of why some of these protests are happening internationally. I don't want to get into it in too much detail, but, you know, yeah. Let's move on to something more interesting. The next one we've got over here, we're going to play baseball with a drone. We're going to catch. Let's watch the clip. So this is actually an artificial intelligence drone that's been trained to learn to catch balls, whether they be basketballs, baseballs, or all sorts of other things. It's been trained. And this is an example of artificial intelligence being paired with drone technology. I think this is absolutely incredible. The link to the description in the description goes to the full video if you want to have a look at that later and learn about it some more. It is interesting. And it doesn't have to be a baseball. It can be any object that they're looking at.
Wow, that does look interesting. It's obviously just a CGI presentation.
No, I don't think so. I think this is actually real. This is not CGI.
I'm not seeing it that way here. Oh, okay. I can see on the two screens there. You've got drone view images.
Yeah.
Wow,
and when it
cool.
doesn't work, they've got some failure examples where it didn't work, so they're using that to go and train the drone up. This is not computer generated.
Now, as an interesting point, just about flying inside, Greg, the industry that's behind this type of security technology and flying inside your home, which is going to be another we've seen a little bit of now, they've moved some regulations around that about what you can do in terms of flying in the house. Fantastic. But they're going to have responsibility involved in it, so the drone can't escape, but they're going to allow a lot more freedom for UAVs and drones to operate inside an enclosed area of someone's property. This came out purely because large warehouses...
I'm confused.
Why is that?
Why is it that a third party would be regulating what you can and can't do inside your home? Your home is your castle. The airspace is regulated outside your home.
Interestingly, not all regulators believe that. And the problem is that even if you are inside your home, where does it, if the aircraft escapes into the airspace, if there's a risk of it escaping, then it becomes a problem. So there's got to be a very basic level of containment that's in place to keep the aircraft inside your home, which then it can do what it likes. So imagine a large factory, right? So they're looking now at drones doing stock takes. So the aircraft flies down and then takes this barcode scan of what's there in terms of stock. And we've seen aircraft doing that kind of work now. So someone opens the factory hangar door to let a truck come in, and bang, the aircraft escapes. And so you've got to have some kind of basic containment strategy and approval that says, okay, the aircraft's going to operate inside, this is what it's going to do, and it can't escape. So that'll be an interesting move forward as well.
Can I just give a parallel to that? Let's say a Tesla car that is only used on private property and is unregistered. Does that mean we've now got to have governance over that to make sure that the autopilot in a Tesla car won't let it get on the open road?
Absolutely. We're going to see that robotic in trucks. Let's say you leave the truck or the car in the driveway and the thing decides to start itself up and go for a drive down the street. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Once you've got that kind of technology in place, you've got to mitigate against the risk, and particularly if it flies, let me tell you. And you've got a warehouse that sits under an approach path of a runway. So there is in play, and particularly in Australia at the moment, they've just released the new requirements for RPAs that operate indoors, and how the risk are going to be mitigated. So that's an interesting read if you're into it. But yeah, we're going to fly our little bug smashers inside all the time. Once they're below 250, once they're below 250 grams, then those rules don't apply. So I should be clear about that one. That's going to be part of the process.
Yeah. Okay. I think there's some constitutional potential challenges in there, but let's not get into that today. The next one we've got is a cleaning drone. Now, you may have seen before, we've had a previous clip where we had a look at a drone that was cleaning a wind turbine. Now, the company raised $3.6 million to look at that and to research that and to build that. But they changed their strategy, and this clip shows what their new strategy is. Let's have a look. So instead of using a drone that's going to go and fly this wind turbine, they've gone and got something where they're anchoring it from the top. So they've got a vertical and they've got the other half of that vertical on the left and right.
I want to see that work in 30 knots.
Well, I think it's got a lot better chance of working in 30 knots than the alternatives. You know, a drone working in 30 knots.
Well, it's cleaning, so it's not taking photos. I mean, obviously the quality of the camera and how the camera can zoom, you're doing inspecting. But this is actually doing coding applications and cleaning. So yeah, there is obviously anchoring the aircraft is going to and is supporting it, or the spray. It's not flying, is it? It's being lifted, yeah?
It's not flying, it's being lifted. But before we go on and do anything else, we're going to quickly cut to our guest, Tim Hay.
Great.
Okay, so that's all for the news for a moment. And now we're going to get in and have a chat to our guest. Today we're speaking to Tim Hay. He's coming to us from part of Africa. Tim, welcome.
How's it going?
Good. Yeah. It's good to have you on. I know my father will be enjoying hearing your accent. He's from South Africa himself, having been now in Australia for many, many years. So just a quick little shout out to Dad. But let's talk about you. You're a drone pilot and you're a filmmaker. You've been doing some film recording during the lockdown kind of stuff. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, we kind of, we didn't really want to sit at home during the lockdown. So the reason we just wanted to gather footage for the news networks here in South Africa. So we got media passes just before the lockdown. And I guess as we went along capturing the stuff, we realized we needed to show everyone what we were doing and make something amazing. And that's how the story or the video came to light.
Okay, and you're a filmmaker first and a drone pilot second, or how did that fusion of those two different skills come together? Yeah, I'm a filmmaker in heart. I mean, I actually only got my drone license maybe 2 years ago. So in South Africa, they're quite strict on drone licenses. So yeah, so the drone's just a secondary thing to what I do. So that's why I partnered with Simon Mulholland. He's also a drone pilot and a partner of mine that we kind of work together on the project. So it's not all me, it's both of us basically that put it together. Okay, so we're going to have a look at a little clip of this in a couple of moments. But before we do, tell me a little bit about drone licensing in South Africa. You mentioned you've got a drone license. Do you need to have a license for recreational flying?
Not for recreational flying. You can actually fly in your own yard and safe places. So, but with the South African license and aviation laws, it's quite strict. I think we're actually the first country to implement very strict laws with drone licenses. So it's very strict compared to other countries, I'd say. Okay.
Now, we're going to play a quick little clip now, and this is only a short grab. Now, my viewers, if you have a look either in the chat or in the description for the video, you will see a link to the full video, and I encourage you to go there. This is the art of the tease. We're only going to have a look at a little bit now, and you'll have to go and click to see more. Let's play the clip. So that's just a little tease of what was in the entire clip. When I saw it, I had to write to you straight away and say I wanted to use some of that or share some of this or talk about it. And again, to my viewers, please do go and have a look at the link in the description, or someone will post it in the chat very shortly. But I want you to tell my viewers about the opening scene of this clip that they're going to see when they go and click on the link, because that was absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, so the whole idea of the opening link is time winding down to the closing of or starting of the lockdown. So like basically as if time's freezing and then everything's kind of like no one's around, and the emptiness of everything, all the doors. So you go to the clock and the clock winds down and stops, and on 12 it strikes 12, and then you track through the all the doors closing as if everything's kind of closing and everyone's going into lockdown. And in South Africa, it's quite funny. The one part of the bottle store where the lights kind of flash and then it switches off. All the bottle stores have been closed since the lockdown, so no one's been able to go to buy any alcohol. And there was like this mad rush before the lockdown to get alcohol. So it's like a little funny, like a bit of it, because it slows down, the lights switch off, and then it carries on through the doors and stuff, which is, significant of like everything starting to lock down, and then you go straight through the last door that opens up like this emptiness and like space and eerie quiet of like KZN.
Yeah.
That was the kind of idea.
Yeah, for our regular viewers, we look at a lot of different types of drone flying, and this is definitely not flying. This is movie making. If you've got any simple advice, what would you give to someone who's already a drone pilot who wants to do something more creative? Where do they get started?
I think, my idea of filming is to film 4 edits. So when I film, I think of what I'm going to edit at the same time. So, and then I'd also follow a lot of like well-known editors or guys that are really good at editing, and try and make what's similar to what they've kind of done, and then make it my own in my own way and change it up. I mean, obviously everything that we kind of create is an extension of someone else's work in a kind of sense, but you make it your own at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. Look, thank you very much for being with us, Tim. And for our viewers, just letting you know, Tim won't be around in the chat. At the time that our show is going to air, it'll be something like 3 a.m. for him. So we've pre-recorded our segment today. I think that was probably better for his family life. But again, thanks, Tim, for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me in. It's been a pleasure.
So there you have it. There was our guest, Tim. He's put together an absolutely incredible short, I won't call it, it's a short almost film. I don't know how to describe it, but just go and check it out. I've posted the link in the description. It's absolutely incredible. He was very gracious. I only caught this yesterday, and we spoke on the phone very briefly on Skype and said, yeah, I'll come in and do an interview. No problem. Great material. Go and check it out.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm again, awed by the way people have these creative elements that they bring into this community, in this realm. As I say, I've always, felt as a photographer, I just don't have the eye for it. Filmmaking. I love flying and I like the whole deal. But when I see something that's been done professionally, I just, it's wonderful to see those two elements, the flying and the creativity of developing that kind of imagery. To me, great skills, wonderful.
Yeah. So right now we're going to continue with our news and our next story. This one is very creative. It's some real estate flying. This is a historic brick schoolhouse that was originally built in 1907 as the West Pikeland High School, and it was preserved for many years on, and it's now for sale. Check this out. Now, if you're into FPV flying, this is definitely the clip for you. There's no photography drone involved in this one, and certainly if you want to own this old schoolhouse, the link is in the description. Please do go and check it out.
Yeah, this is a whole nother level, isn't it? Oh, look at that. That's just fantastic. And here we, more recently now, we're seeing cinematography coming in and FPV being melded together. Great action shots being done with all of this fly-through stuff. Hats off to the guys that do this. I mean, it's such a great intriguing thing to look at and enjoy. You feel like you're running or, actually flying.
You're floating through it. You're floating through it.
Floating through the house. And, I mentioned and I think we saw the one from Mercedes a few weeks ago where they've done the mechatronics factory. Was that right?
The museum.
And they're flying around the car. The museum, thank you.
Yeah. Another
great way. All the museums in the world should have a video like this where you can fly through, have a look at the museum, have a bit of the most incredible virtual tour that you could put together, flown and obviously very skillfully flown by someone with their hands on the controls. That's what I love. It's someone actually, flying this aircraft with great skill. Oh, it's wonderful. It just doesn't get boring, does it? It doesn't get old.
But I love the feeling. I love the feeling of flight, watching it.
That's great stuff.
So there's a phone number if you want to buy that house, and I'm sure they can put you in touch with the pilot. If you want to go and sell your house and you want them to go and list it, I'm sure they'd be happy to do that as well.
There's how FPV guys are going to see the future in terms of monetizing, apart from racing and all of the side of racing, the fun of racing. This new way of seeing and enjoying this kind of cinematography is going to be their world. The guys that do the heavy lift stuff on the cameras, of course, are not probably going to fly this kind of stuff. It's going to be the guys who've got the FPV skills that do it, for sure. Yeah.
So our next one we've got here today is Depth. This is drone-equipped temperature probing hardware. Let's just have a look at this one.
Stop laughing, Lloyd.
Algae blooms are an annual risk to nearly 11 million people who rely on Lake Erie and Ohio's inland lakes for both recreational purposes and for clean drinking water. To help monitor and someday prevent this harmful cyanobacteria, I created Project Depth in conjunction with Ohio Space Grant Consortium. Project Depth is a piece of drone flight hardware that will collect temperature and GPS data so that data maps may be formed to better study the harmful algae blooms. The test kit weighs in at 1.25 pounds and easily fastens to the bottom of a drone. All data is written to an SD card found on the inside of the kit. The simple user interface allows users to input all of their flight parameters as well as survey parameters through the digital keypad and LCD screen. When a survey is in progress, the red LED on the side of the case will come on to indicate that a data point is being recorded. The user must manually unspool the given amount of wire so that the depth of the survey may be probed. Now that the drone and depth kit are flight ready, the user must press a button to indicate that the survey is starting. Next, the user will fly the drone over the survey area.
So I thought you'd be interested in this one, John. That's why I definitely threw it into the mix today.
Surveys may also be taken manually.
Yeah, look at this. Got it roving on the kayak as well.
The survey is complete. Now the user may remove the SD card to upload the survey data to a PC. The unique design of Depth allows it to remain fully programmable while also being waterproof. Lake Erie is one of Ohio's most precious resources, and we must invest in projects like Depth to keep it safe for generations to come.
Yeah. It's not something that we normally think about, but algae blooms and all sorts of other different things that grow and happen in bodies of water, temperature is an important factor. And I don't know what you do if you actually say, well, the temperature's not so good here. I don't know what they do, but it's good data points nevertheless for researchers.
Yeah, if you've got to collect the data. When I look at it, I keep thinking, what a great use for a lunchbox, airtight lunchbox. I know that that's a bit of a side issue, but obviously this guy has put together the tech and built it in that little case, and because you can open it up so you can change it. You might remember, Greg, we had 2 of our aircraft built into those similar type of cases that we could transfer. When we were building Pixhawk autopilots, we put all of the gear into a similar type of box and could transfer it. Great little idea, when anything you're going to sling like that, and these days you can 3D print them as well. Now, I don't know how that relates to a temperature story, but just looking at the tech and what he's done, anything that and obviously weigh it. The point was, what does it weigh and what are you picking up? And that's what you got to be careful of in that case. But, hats off to him. That's a great little development.
So if you build something really, really incredible, you can be a legend in your lunchbox?
You can be a legend in your own lunchtime. Exactly.
I was just laughing about the temperature probe.
I knew that was coming, Grumpy. He was sitting there laughing in the background the whole way.
Well, he mentions a temperature probe, and if you think,
I know.
yeah, my mind
I
went
know.
somewhere it shouldn't have.
When you
What
get
can
to
I
our
say?
age, temperature probes are all too frequent.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I can say.
Yeah. That's why I was
Okay.
laughing.
Yeah, I know.
Moving right along. Let's
Thank
move
you,
on
moderator.
to let's move on to pollen. So this one, we've got a drone that is blowing out clouds of bubbles to go and pollinate some flowers. This is absolutely awesome as well. Let's check the clip. So they've gone and taken a child's toy, literally, attaching that to a drone, and they did some research to have a look at the different types of soap material to work out which one is the best one to use to pollinate plants and flowers. And it stopped there for some reason. Okay, we had a problem with that clip, but interesting.
That's very, very interesting, actually, because although the soap concerns me a bit, because, I don't know about, they're just bubbles anyway, but another very, environmentally friendly way of creating bubbles could be used for, lots of agricultural applications in terms of low volume spray. You're looking at the way you control weeds and so forth in terms of way that pest control might work within a kind of bubble environment. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting. I've never seen anything like that at all. Even pollinating from bubbles is new stuff to me.
It is an interesting application. But speaking of bubbles, there's one place where you always want just the right amount of bubbles, not too much, not too little, too much, or whatever. When you drink beer,
Absolutely.
We had to have one drone delivery story, and this is Brewdog exploring drone delivery in the UK. Scottish brewer and operator Brewdog will start using drones to deliver its beer to various locations on its campus in Columbus, Ohio, and is looking to use this method for its delivery service in the UK.
Well, the big lesson here, Greg, of course, is that you always go towards where there's a demand. We're talking about a university campus and the requirement to get beer moved around. I mean, always market where the market has a space in it, and there's a big one there. I know that when you've got craft beer, you want it delivered very quickly. I know this from my friend Roy, who is an expert on craft beer and how fresh it needs to be. So, there it is. There's definitely market there. Fresh craft brewed beer.
Absolutely. Well, we've come to the end of the news clips. I've got one more clip I'm going to play in a little while, not just yet. Thunderbird says, whole new meaning of DUI, droning under the influence. Okay. I'd like to have a bit of fun now, and this is something we do at the end of the show from time to time. And it's time to have a little bit of joking off. And I didn't let them know that we were doing it today, so that's going to make it even more interesting between Lloyd and John. You ready, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. What have we got, Lloyd?
I've left him speechless.
No, you didn't. I was ready.
Okay.
Politicians and diapers have one thing in common. They should both be changed regularly and for the same reason.
That one is priceless. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm with that one. Well, in Australia, we do change our politicians regularly. I mean, it's like a revolving door. You guys over there don't get enough chance to change them unless they get sacked.
Look, and Lloyd, that joke is definitely proof that we've been experiencing that in Australia. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm going to hand it over, and Lloyd, you win the comp today. I'm not even going to go up against that one. I love it. I'm going to be using it.
Do you want to tell one more, Lloyd? Because I know you've got another one in reserve.
I changed my Facebook username to nobody. So that way, when people post crappy posts, I can press the like button to say, nobody likes this.
Yeah, there you go. Nobody likes this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. So we've reached the end of the show. I've got one last little fun clip to play. This one's 6.03 from my producer. This one is some ancient bristlecone pines filmed by drone. And this guy brought along a drone to get some shots of these trees. And it's just absolutely beautiful. We're going to see if we can get them along for a guest appearance in the near future. But in the meantime, let's just have a quick look. Sorry, what was that, John?
What is that? A type of tree, or is it happened due to some? I mean, that's unusual.
This is a type of tree. Apparently, these are ancient bristlecone pines. I've never heard of it before, but the guy who filmed this, he's a journalist and drone pilot as well. So we're going to invite him to come on as a guest in the near future as well. Before we go today, we've got one thing we do need to do right now, and that is to thank Wayne King for his $10 super chat. Good show, Greg and team. We had a lot of fun doing it. We're not here to make money, but it's always good if you send some. Speaking of which, again, can you post that link to the GoFundMe again for me, Lloyd, in the chat? Again, our regular viewer has his son literally getting a new heart today, and it would be really nice for those who are able to chuck in a few dollars. Doesn't matter what it is, but just it's a nice way to say thanks to another audience member who watches and tunes in.
Yeah, we got to look after each other.
Yeah,
that's right. Yep.
Speaking of looking after each other, you need to look after me and send me some good videos. Send me something that I can play next week, because it's all good for me to go and find this stuff, but I want to see your footage as well. So send it to upload@gregkuhnert.com. And you can find us on social media, OzByDrone, OzByDrone, OzByDrone. The same tag on Twitter, Facebook, Periscope, Twitch, YouTube, no matter what it is, nice and easy to find. And lastly, if you've got anything physical you want to send, chocolate from America is always well received. 5/127 Princess Highway, Sylvania, New South Wales, 2224. That's all we've got time for today. Any last words from you, John?
Cool stuff. Just to recap again, go check out Air Data UAV. Don't forget, if you I really recommend that product to have a look at. No matter how you fly, particularly if you're flying a DJI aircraft, nice and easy. And also, just a quick recap for any operators that are in Australia operating under CASA's REOC. They've just released a new template, and the new template wraps up the old manual, the operational library, and the manual of standards. 3 existing documents into one nice, tidy document. All the language of those 3 documents has been formalized into one now. So that's just happened a couple of days ago. So if you're an operator, definitely download the latest sample from the CASA website of the REOC Operators Manual. There you go.
Indeed. And let me just say again, I know you've just mentioned it, Air Data UAV. Thank you to those guys. They do make an absolute great product. Go and get a free registration. It doesn't cost you anything to do that. And if you like it, we've got the discount code that you can certainly use to get some money off. But if you do buy it before the end of Father's Day this weekend, you can get an even bigger discount. Now, with that, handing over to Lloyd, any last comments from you, son?
Yeah, I want to thank Wayne King because he thought I wasn't going to be ready, did you? I just got a notice that he's donated to the GoFundMe, and I appreciate that. I know that I'll get with Nick after the show or sometime this week when he's got time, and we'll get it set up where he has control of it. So just, hey, it doesn't cover the having to run out to McDonald's and get something to eat, because you're not at home where you can cook, That's what this is. I mean, the essential, you don't think about that stuff until you're sitting in the hospital and suddenly you're like, oh my God, what do I do? Where do I, so yeah. So thanks, Wayne, for that. And it was a great show, Greg. It was fun.
I'm glad you had fun. I had fun doing it. John had fun in his car
Absolutely.
in the middle of, where are you again, John?
I'm outside my old school. I spent a lot of time outside my old school when I was here. But anyway, it's nice to sit here. It's a lovely sunny spot. And maybe, I can, of course, when I'm flying somewhere and we can do some streaming flying, I can show you more. But yeah, I just love being here and really enjoy where the show has gone over the last year and, over through 100 shows. And it's great to hear back and the support that we get from the community and what they like. So, yeah, I'm happy. Good.
And let me just say, John, before we go, you couldn't do what you used to do when you were young anymore because they build fences around the schools now.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking at. There's a fence here, right? That's to keep me out now. Keep me in when I was there, now to keep me out. So there you go.
Okay, that's all we've got time for. It's been fun having you along for the ride. This has been OzByDrone. I'm Greg, he's John, and Lloyd is the crazy one on the side. That's all we got time for. See you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye, everybody. See ya.